I buy into for $500 at this 1-3 table. First hand we get involved in, I have ace queen offsuit. There are a couple limpers in front of me. I make it $20. The small blind, big blind, and both limpers decide that $20 is a fair amount to play, so they all put it in, and we're going to go see a flop with $100 in the center. Looks like a good flop when it comes ace high with an 8 and a 5. There are no flush draws out there. There's a possible 6-7 available. All the players check it over to me. I go 40% pot here for $40, and they all decide to fold. So we win our first hand of the day. It's not a big pot, but it's always nice to start off with a W. There are two limpers, and a player raised to $10. I peek down at king queen suited from the small blind. Definitely going to be putting in a raise. I make it $35, just trying to clear out the other players and go heads up with the player who raised to $10. He has a tendency to do this with hands that are not super strong and are just kind of middle of the road playable hands. So I should have him dominated, hoping that he puts in the call, and that's exactly what he does. So the two of us head off to a flop with $74 in the pot. Flop comes out 8 deuce deuce with 2 diamonds. Of course, I do not have any diamonds. I have hearts. Same color, wrong suit. I'm going to check it over to him. If he has a small pocket pair, he's going to fire, but he doesn't. So when he checks it back, I feel very confident. The ace of spades does bring out a second flush draw, but it hits my range a lot harder than it hits his, I believe. So I leave for $25. He thinks for a second, lets it go, so we win another small one. There's a $3 limp, raised to $10 and a caller, and I look down at 2 jacks from the small blind. Gotta be putting in a raise, so I make it $50. Probably can go a little bit larger here. The blinds and the first limper fold out, and the other 2 players end up putting in the call. So we're going to end up going 3 ways to this flop with 155 in the center. Well, the flop is good and it's bad. We do end up with an overpair. The only problem is there's all spades that are well connected, and we do not have a spade in our hand. Tough spot with 2 players behind me. I decided to check to see what they would do. Both players end up checking rather quickly, so I feel comfortable in my hand. Turn card comes as a 7 diamonds, pairs the board. Definitely a good card for my hand, because unless they have a 7 or slow played a monster like a flush or a straight, I should have the best hand. I decided to bet $90 here. I don't want to give any free cards to someone with like a hand like king queen or maybe ace queen. Maybe they have a small pair with a spade. I don't want them drawing for that. Well, after this hand, I moved over to a different table. They had some bigger stacks and a little bit more action. Here again, I'm in the small blind with 8-9 suited. There is a small raise, and I decided to continue. So we're going to end up going to this flop with $33 in the center. Flop, well, comes out ace high. Not good, but it does have a 9, which is good, and I have some backdoor straights and flush draws. This is the type of hand I like to continue with, as long as it's not too expensive. And the initial raiser puts in a small bet, so I don't think I can let this one go for $12. So I put in the call, and we get to see a 6 of hearts. Pretty good card. I'd rather be a 6 of clubs, but 6 of hearts is okay. Check it to the aggressor, and he bets again. This time he uses a little bit of larger size, $25. Not quite sure whether I'm getting the right price, but I'm going to stick it in. He's a pretty active player, and I don't mind giving him some action. River card comes as a 9. I check it to see if he will fire again, and he checks it right back, and he happened to have ace 6. So, yeah, kind of put a little beat on him. All right, there's one limper in front of me. I look down at ace king offsuit. Definitely going to put in a raise here to 15. End up getting 2 callers, one from the player on the button and one from the original limper. So with $48 in the pot, we get to see a flop that comes ace high with rainbow. Pretty good flop for ace king. I'm flopping well today. First player just open shoves for his remaining stack, which happens to be about $76. Yeah, nothing to do here but just call. Maybe the other player will overcall. If he does, I don't mind the action. but he quickly mucks it, and we're going to just see a run out, which comes eight of diamonds and then the jack of spades. He says he misses, so I just show my ace king, and he quickly mucks. This happened to be my last hand of the day, but came back the very next day and we got some more action. Find myself in the big blind. There was a $10 raise and a bunch of callers, so we're going to go 5 ways to this flop with $50 in. Flop comes out maybe too good. It comes 7-4-3 rainbow. So top set. Don't think too many people with big cards are going to be betting here, so I decided to lead small, trying to build a pot myself. Bet out for $20. I only get one caller for the $20, and we're going to see what we can do on the turn. It does come a jack of diamonds. I really don't think he has too much, but I'm just going to pretend like I do, because I do. Bet out for 60. He quickly folds, and we get first pot of the day. There's a $6 straddle, a limp for $6. The player makes it 26, and I look down at 2 aces on the button. I make it 75. All the limpers fold out. Just the player who made it 26 puts in the call for the 75, and we're going to go heads up to a flop with 166 in. Comes king high rainbow. Pretty good flop for me. He checks it over. I'm going to continue for $50. Small bet, I think, is a good idea. He puts in the quick call, hoping that he has a king, because a deuce of spades comes on the turn. A complete blank. If he has a king, I think he's going to call me down. If he doesn't, I don't think any bet size will really get too much action. I bet 115. He snap folds. We're in the big blind with another small pair, and there is a player that ends up raising to $10. We go 5 ways to this flop, just like we did with sevens, and we flop a set. This time it's a bomb set with an ace and a king on board. Should be able to check this and get some action, but it gets checked all the way through. Turn card comes as a deuce of clubs. I decided to check it one more time, see if someone will stab at it with a king. I do have a player who bet 20. Player in the small blind puts in the call for the 20. Now it's time to spring the trap. I decided to make it $90. It should be small enough to let someone continue with a lone ace, maybe even a lone king. If we have a flush draw, I gave him a really good price, but I don't think anyone does, so I'm looking to get some action from a lone ace or a lone king. The initial bettor does put in the call for the $90. The other player folds out. Hoping for a blank on the end, and then I can take maybe a little extra value out of an ace or a king. River card comes is a jack of diamonds. It does put out a potential straight. I don't think I can get too much from this player. I only put him on 1 pair at this time. If he has 2 pair, maybe he'll put in a raise. I make a small bet, and he thinks for a moment and decides to call the 110. And he shows pocket deuces. Wow, he got off a little bit cheap on that one. Well, the game's starting to play a little bit bigger now. There's a player who limps to my right for $3. I raise to 20. People are very call happy, and I figure they're going to call for 15. Might as well charge them 20. Well, they all come for the 20. We end up playing this one 5 ways. Yes, 5 ways. We go to a flop with $101 in the center. Well, we built a pot. Let's see if we can hit the flop. Flop comes out. King, Jack, 5 with 2 spades. Oh, really good flop. It's a very draw-heavy board, and there's a flush out there. So I'm going to lead a little bit larger than I normally do. No small bets on this one. So $50 it is. I still end up getting 2 callers for the $50. Gotta love the action, right? Turn card, please be a blank. And it is a 4 diamonds. Well, it does put out second flush draw, but other than that, it looks pretty good. Both players end up checking to me. 2 flush draws out there and 2 players interested. I'm going to go for a larger size. I go 80% pot. Made it $210. If someone has a king with a flush draw, they're not going anywhere. Both players quickly fold. Well, that worked so well, let's try it again. This time with clubs. I open for 15. It's folded all the way around to the big blind, who puts in the call for the 15. He's very deep, and I'm starting to get pretty deep myself. Flop comes queen 10-6. He quickly checks. I bet 15 with my open end straight draw, and he quickly calls. Turn card comes is the ace of hearts. We make the nuts. How sweet it is. He checks again. I bet for 25. He thinks for a moment and then raises to 90. All right, there are two types of hands I think you can have here. One is a value hand, something like pocket sixes, maybe ace 10. Could also have king jack himself, and those are the value hands I think he probably is raising with. The drawing hands that he could be raising with are something like two hearts and a straight draw, maybe jack nine of hearts. He could even have king jack of hearts. I'm not blocking that. That would be awful if he's free rolling me. I did a lot of work on some GTO stuff recently, and did it with 100 and 200 big blinds. With 100 big blinds, this is a flat call in position, and you just let the person either continue bluffing or put in the raise on the end. 200 big blinds, about 30% of the time you're supposed to put in a raise now. But 400 big blinds, I do not know. I suspect that there's going to be a whole lot more raising and less calling. But because I did the work with what I knew of 200 big blinds, I stuck in the call. And sure enough, a five of hearts comes on the end. All those draws that he could have been bluffing with now are there. The flush draw was the only real threat. If he had a value hand, I expected him to bet about $200. He starts to assemble a bet, and it is for $210. So yeah, he could still have a value hand, but I just kind of feel like he did this with a combo draw, like a hand like jack nine of hearts, maybe with a king and another heart. I put in the crying call, and he shows king seven of hearts. So I really screwed that hand up. The correct play, I believe, and this is just my belief because I don't have the software to back it up right now, is that it should be putting in a pot size raise on the turn. If he has a flush draw or combo draw, he would have to pay a pot size bet to see it. And if he has a value hand, he will, of course, maybe re-raise or at least call. And if he has king jack of hearts, then I am just totally screwed because all the money would get in, and then he will get that free roll and beat me. Well, my mind's still spinning from that previous hand. I looked down at two sixes on the button. There was a limp and a raise to $18, a caller. I call from the button for the $18. And we end up going to a flop, five ways, with $91 in the center, which comes 6-4-4. Are you freaking kidding me? What a perfect flop. But I don't know if you noticed this, but did you notice the guy at the other end of the table just a second ago? Let's go back and take a look. This guy isn't involved in the hand, but if you watch his reaction to the flop, I bet you can tell exactly what he had. When the flop comes out with two fours on there, he had a four in his hand, because watch him lean over and tell his neighbor, hey, I had a four. Of course, his neighbor isn't involved in the hand, but now I know there's only one four left in the deck. Player initial raiser bets out for $65. Player to my right decides to put in the call. I'm thinking that he has a flush draw. The initial raiser might have an overpair or two big cards. I decided to put in the call. Not really worried about too much at this point. You know, I flopped basically the nuts. Turn card comes is a 10 of spades. What a perfect card. The only hand I'm losing to is pocket tens. The initial raiser checks. I expect the player to my right to bet, but instead he checks. Kind of odd. I'm pretty sure he was on a flush draw. I decided to put out a very small bet, trying to entice someone to call with maybe just a overcard. Is a spade. And if the person did have a flush behind me, I think they might go ahead and go for a check raise. So the first player does put in the call for the $70. Now it's to the player to my direct right. After a very long tank, he decides to raise to $220, which is a $150 raise. He only has like another $160 to $200 left behind. If he had a bigger stack, I'll just go ahead and get it all in here. But I really want to get an overcall from the other player. He's the one that beat me with that King 7 of hearts. And if he has something like Ace of Spades or a King of Spades, he might go ahead and put in the call. He doesn't. He folds quickly. And we see a river card, which comes of 4 of diamonds. Are you effing kidding me? It's basically the only card in the deck that would kill all the action. If a 6 or a 10 comes, or even another spade, I think he still pays off with his flush. The 4, unfortunately, makes it just about impossible for him to be good. So when he checks, I bet, trying to get his last couple bucks that he has behind. As I said, it's only like $160 to maybe $200. It's hard to tell. His stack is very messy, but he snap folds and mutters, just like I'm muttering now. Player opens for $10. 2 people call for the $10. I look down at 2 aces in the big blind. I decided to make it 50. Probably should go larger. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit too small, but first 2 players fold. I only get call from the player on the button. He's the gentleman with a very large stack. Flop comes out 8-6-5 with 2 clubs. Not a great flop for my hand. I do not have a club in it. Hits his range a lot harder, so I decide to check. He quickly checks it back. Turn card is a king of clubs. It does hit my range, but it does bring up another club, so I checked it, and he checked it back. River card looks pretty safe unless he has a 5. I could probably bet for value here, or I can check it to him and see if he'd take a stab at it if he missed. He might have been slow playing something, so when he bets $80 on the river, don't think it's really worthy of a raise in my part, but there's no way I'm going to be folding. He could be doing this with a lot of hands, missed draws, maybe a pair. I put in the call. He shows King Jack. I show him the aces, and we win this hand. Not a big pot for aces, but I'll take it. Well, we had a couple good days there. That first day, we didn't play very long, but we ended up winning $425. Second day was much better. We got some good hands, flopped a lot of good hands, and misplayed one that really cost me. But we ended up winning $835 on that day. So overall, couple days, I like the results. Now that one hand with the King Jack of clubs, when I turned the nut straight, I think I learned a valuable lesson, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. When you're very deep, you got to protect those hands and get as much value as you can, and maybe get them pot committed by the time the river card comes. As I said, I think a pot size raise on the turn is justified and correct. I'm not positive though, so any of you that's done a lot of work with GTO strategies, hey, let me know what you think. Anyway, I do appreciate you guys watching, and I really do enjoy making these videos and getting all the feedback with you guys. Thanks again, and until next time, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here next week.